The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our end of November webinar. Today's topic, Migration of Project Online, Insights and Best Practices. We have in the title Project Online because right now that is the more frequent direction in Microsoft PPM migrations. However, the concepts that are here apply to Project Server to the most extent, and when applicable, we'll try to highlight if there's a major difference. But we mentioned Project Online again because that's what most is taking place right now. But Project Server migrations are also applicable with what we're going to show today. So the first thing I want to do is talk about some migration concepts so that we all get on the same page in terms of how we view it. And the first thing I'd like to do is have everyone respond to your current version of Microsoft PPM. If you could just get some responses. We can see how most folks are in Project Server 2013, although there are already within this audience some folks in Project Online. I think we'll go ahead and give folks a couple more seconds. Okay, so we can see that the majority of folks are still not on Project Online. There are some within this audience that are, and I think it's interesting because some of the concepts even that we have within this webinar apply to Project Online, even if you're migrating between PWAs or migrating within tenants. So you'll get some benefit from what we're going to cover. So the first major realization that every PWA administrator needs to make is that Project Online, although it appears that it's exactly the same as Project Server with new features, it is, from a data management standpoint, a huge paradigm shift. The sooner you realize this, the easier it's going to be for you to understand how to attack the challenge of administration of PPM on the cloud. So first of all, okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Alona?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank
okay,
you.
Excellent. So the first major realization is that your infrastructure management is limited. Before if you had it on premise, you had the ability to go to the back end or the front end to make changes, to talk to your IT operations folks and make any type of adjustment that needed to be made. Now you don't have that. You have to rely on Office 365 and Microsoft as the SaaS provider and raise tickets with respect to any issues that you might have. The cloud infrastructure does have technical boundaries, so you have to understand how much data you can upload, how much data you can extract in terms of reporting. And in the context of a migration, understanding that is critical, as we're going to talk about. You do have very easily deployable PPM infrastructure because, hey, we have 9,000 sites that Microsoft provides within a tenant. So you do have the ability to create multiple PWAs. And I think we have to leverage that to our advantage in testing, in providing more of the service to the rest of the organization and not just to IT. So that, I think it's a plus from being able to deliver the value of PPM. And we do have to realize that we have access to data exclusively through data, and what that means is you have to just adjust your reporting strategy to the tools that are available, and if needed, do a mirror of your project online database, because you don't have that project online database on premise. So again, having a mirror might be of use, depending again what your requirement is. The main point here is that the PW administrator requires different tools and processes to leverage Project Online. And again, the sooner that you realize this and you understand what it's going to take, the more value you're going to be able to provide to the organization. One that's not here, by the way, backups. Backups are not available. So FluentPro provides a backup tool, which again bridges that gap in terms of what you do not have. Now, after several hundred migrations, here's some insights in terms of what we've been able to observe. So migrating the PPM data to Project Online and being on the cloud, it's an important step for the organization and the evolution of the PPM, the PMO capability. The accessibility is greater. There's a tendency to leverage more of the Office 365 capabilities together with Project Online. The collaboration increases. So definitely a plus from making the capability more widely available and evolving it to the next level. I mean, it's literally transforming. Everybody talks about digital transformation, but this is a digital transformation step for the PMO. What we've seen is, again, successful migrations of Project Online. If you actually do a successful migration, which we're about to talk about what that really means, it will increase the success of PPM in the organization. So it's a critical step that you need to do correctly. Otherwise, you are handicapping or lowering the probability of success of project portfolio management in the organization. So don't underestimate it, because it can hamper the progress that the PMO and PPM capability in the organization can reach. Now, together with that is understanding that the migration is complex. There's a lot of different factors, a lot of moving variables that you have to try to manage in order to do it successfully. And what we have found is developing a migration strategy ensures data integrity and sets expectations correctly within your customer and user or PMO, and allows you to achieve the stated objectives of PPM in the organization. So we'll talk about all three of these through the presentation. So just some perspective in terms of sizing where we are, and this comes from about a year's worth of data of sizing questionnaires that we collect. You can see that the 44% are what we would call small to small medium migrations, so under 250 projects that have to be migrated. And then you get into some of the medium and large scenarios, even extreme scenarios, migration sizing that are we're currently involved in one that has greater than 5,000 projects, and a couple of other ones that are even at the 8,000 project level. So the point here is that the amount of data is directly related to the duration, the amount of time the migration is going to take. And that's an important recognition. And that brings into play what it is that you're going to migrate, and we're going to get into that later, because I always tell our customers, you have to focus on active projects and not everything that's within a project server database for the last 5 years, in order to reduce the time, meet the timeline expectations for the migration. The second is the amount of quality data is directly related to the risk and complexity of the migration. 100 master projects is very different than 100 small projects. So you have to understand the data that's within your source environment in order to determine, again, how much risk and how much complexity you're going to have. And as we said before, the more successful migrations go through the proper steps of planning and developing a migration strategy in order for you to have that data integrity and to meet the stakeholder expectations. But from our distribution, you can see here that there's a lot of, right now, at least from our exposure to, again, these 120 in 2017, 100 different instances of migrations, that approximately a good close to 60% are in the medium to large, and then 44% are in the small range. We'll talk later, because even a small migration can be complex, again, depending on the quality of the data and what's actually within the content. So the next, I'd like to understand, I know this is closely related to the prior survey, but if you could just share with us, where are you at in your migration status? And we can see that there's some folks that have already completed. Go ahead and give it a couple more seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and close the polls. So it's fairly consistent with what we see. There's a lot of folks that are still thinking about doing migrations or are in progress. So it's a good moment to be doing them. By the way, the platform has improved over the last couple of years, and with all the experience of all of the other organizations that have already migrated, that we have a lot of best practices, and we're going to share those in the next. So just to summarize these concepts as we set up the technical overview, what are some of the critical success factors that we see with, again, the hundreds of migrations that we have either been directly involved with or witnessed through our partners? The first is you really need to set clear expectations for the business customer. And there's a tendency to not understand the timing and overpromise in terms of the ability to deliver a migration to Project Online quickly. So this is something that we recommend that you try to tackle initially. There's a lot of assessment, a lot of planning that needs to go on before you actually commit to a delivery date for a completed Project Online migration. The second, as I said, you have to estimate and assess the data to be migrated, so exactly what's in there. And the more detailed assessment that you can do, the better estimate that you're going to have a duration, and the better test migration that you're probably going to achieve. Understanding the technical boundaries of Project Online for migration, and this has to do with the concept of how much data can be uploaded at once, how many accounts, how many VMs, the concept of throttling within a Project Online site and tenant. And again, you can plan through this, but you have to take it into account when developing your project plan. In addition, there are some technical boundaries with regards to what can be actually migrated. So we'll cover that in a few more slides later, but essentially you can't just pick something up from Project Server and take it directly to Project Online. And you might have some customizations. There are some items that can't actually be migrated, so have those up front and know how to manage those exceptions. The rest are a series of steps that we've talked about before in other migration webinars, but we're big now in developing that migration strategy and having that dialogue with the end customer. What is it that we're going to migrate? What is a sequence of content? You can follow with a detailed project schedule. You're going to have to prepare the migration environments, target, both source and target, by the way, and training the team that's going to actually perform the migration. We found a lot of benefit in doing even before doing a test migration, just doing a training migration on a small volume of data. Then after having that experience of how your environments, your network is going to perform doing a test migration. Now, test migration is essentially a dry run of the entire data set. So you're going to go through all the steps and you're going to find all the gotchas, all of the issues that your data is going to have, that your source system is going to have, the ability of your tenant to actually consume everything that you're going to put up on the upload. After you have gone through and figured out how to overcome those challenges, you're going to perform your production migration. And then finally, post-migration validation activities through reporting of source data against target data in the environments. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alona, who's going to give us a more in-depth technical overview of how we actually go about doing this.
Hello, everyone. I would like to start with migration scenarios. Migration to project online can include different scenarios and directions. This can be a migration from an older version of Project Server on premises like Project Server 2010 and 2013. It can be migration between different tenants in Project Online, and also it can be a migration from an external PPM system into Project Online. And FluentBooks, which is a migration software designed by FluentPro, supports the following directions that you can see on the screen. So this tool is designed to help project server administrators to perform configuration and data migration between project server and project online environments. Before the migration begins, one of the best practices that we developed during our various migrations is to assess the data that exists in the source environment. There are several different sets of data that need to be evaluated and assessed before even the planning for the migration begins. The first part is resources and users that exist in the source environment. The overall number of resources of each type, like work, costs, material, overall number of users that exist in the environment and that actively use their environment. It's important to understand that users who will need to have access to the Project Online environment after migration, they need to have Office 365 accounts on the tenant level in the Project Online tenant. The next large part that needs to be assessed is projects, the overall number of projects, number of active projects. In case if you decide to proceed with migrating only a smaller part of data like active projects to Project Online and leaving older projects in archive or completely leaving them in the source environment. Number of project templates, which will also separately migrate it together with projects. Number of master projects is an important item because they are more complex than small and single projects, and depending on the number of master projects in the environment, this may take longer to perform the download and to upload the data. Project sites also need to be evaluated before the migration. The overall number of them, projects and project sites ratio, which projects have project size and which projects don't have them. Number of site templates. Also, it would be a good practice to open like 5 to 10 project sites and visually review them and understand the level of customizations in these project sites, because Project Online in some ways has different structure than Project Server on premises, and not all customizations can be supported in Project Online. And it is important to understand what can be migrated and what cannot. If there are some custom web parts, like third-party web parts, they may not be directly supported in Project Online, and this will need to be mitigated. PWA configuration and settings. This is a smaller set of data, but it is important to understand that for a successful migration of projects, all custom fields and lookup tables, PDPs, enterprise project types, workflows, they all need to be migrated to the target system for correct data migration for all projects and for keeping data integrity. So when we talk about the migration scope, I would like to mention different migration components that can be included into the data migration. The first one is PWA configuration and settings. This includes custom fields and lookup tables, enterprise calendars, resources, views, enterprise project types, PDPs. It would be a good practice to migrate them all to the target environment, because if any of the entities are missing, this could have influence on project's migration. For example, enterprise calendars, they have a huge impact on project schedules, and differences in calendars may cause shifting the schedules, dates, start and finish dates. Projects with schedules is another component that can be migrated, and there is a decision to make which projects will go to the new system. Will it be only active projects? Will it be like projects created this year or 2 years, or maybe if there are not that many projects, all of them will be moved to the new system. Together with projects, we migrate project sites, and we can decide if it will be a selection of project sites only for the projects that are being migrated, or there are more project sites that need to be moved to the new system. Project site templates is an important component for project sites migration, because during migration, a project site is created in the new system, and it can either be created from a default project site template provided by Microsoft, or it can be created from a custom site template specifically created for your organization. And as we saw in multiple migrations, there can be active project site templates that are being used in the organization right now, and also there can be inactive project site templates that were used some time before, and there is also a decision to make if only active site templates will be migrated or all of them are necessary in the new environment. With regards to site templates, it is important to remember about one of the limitations related to migration from Project Server 2010 to Project Online. Site templates from Project Server 2010 are not supported in Project Online due to the changes in the architecture. And such templates, they either need to be completely rebuilt in the new environment, or there is a workaround that FluentBooks provides for such migration. The next component is resources and users, and either a selection of resources can be migrated to the new environment, like only active resources, including some generic cost and material resources, or the entire resource pool can be also migrated to Project Online. Timesheets is another component that can be migrated, and I would like to note that timesheets migration is provided as a service by FluentPro and can be performed by our migration team, as the process of migrating timesheets is a pretty complex one, which requires specific training and knowledge on the migration process. Resource plans, which exist in Project Server 2010 and Project Server 2013, can be migrated to Project Online, but during this migration they need to be transformed into resource engagements, as Microsoft introduced resource engagements as a new feature in Project Online. And FluentBooks supports this transformation of resource plans into resource engagements. Reports can also be migrated to Project Online. However, it is important to remember about certain limitations of Project Online. For example, SSRS reports are not supported by Project Online infrastructure. So if you use SSRS reports in Project Server on premises, you will need to understand that reports will need to be rebuilt or modified in order to be usable in Project Online. There are several other limitations, and you can see on the screen part of them. This is not entire list, but one of the important ones. Some of these limitations are related to the API provided by Microsoft, and that is used by the migration tool. Some of them are related to Project Online infrastructure, as in certain ways it is different from Project Server on premises. And among them are project timelines, status managers, and strategic impacts. These limitations are related to API, and limitations related to SharePoint, like custom web parts. Quite often they are not supported in Project Online by its infrastructure. When we talk about data assessment, we do the data assessment to understand what is the volume of migration data, and based on this volume, we can do the planning, how long the migration will take, how complex and how complex it will be. And migration process is not a fast process, and depending on the amount of data that you have in your source environment and that you decide to move to the target system, depending on the complexity of your data, the process will take different time. It can be from a month and a half to half a year if you have like thousands of projects that you decide to move to Project Online. And on this simple example, I would like to show you why migration can take a long time. For example, if we are talking about simple projects migration, like 500 projects, and each of them has up to 200 tasks and small number of assignments, and not that many task level custom fields, not many fields that use formulas. You can see that the upload time will be from 5 to 10 minutes per project, and this is only the upload speed, but it will also, for the project's migration, you will also need to download them and to verify them post-upload. But you can see the difference between simple projects and complex projects. For example, if you have 500 projects with 1,000 tasks in average, and each of the tasks has a lot of assignments and a lot of task level custom fields, especially using formulas, the time of the upload can increase to up to 30 minutes, and in some of the migrations we saw even longer time of the upload, up to an hour, like a large master project that includes like 10 or even more sub-projects with a large number of assignments. It can take even an hour or more to upload such project to Project Online. And there are ways to perform parallel uploads to speed up the process. This is possible, but in some ways limited, and these limitations are related to the nature of Project Online and to the API provided by Microsoft. So I would like to show you a typical Project Online usage, and to describe why the migration process is different from this typical usage. In the day-to-day process, when users work with Project Online, you can see that most operations are read-only operations, like opening a project, viewing the tasks, like reviewing the timesheets, and these operations are not added to the Project Online queue, and they do not impact the performance of Project Online. From time to time, project managers update their projects, they save them, they perform project publish, they create new project sites, and these operations are added to Project Online queue, and they need to be processed. Some of the requests can be processed one by one, some of them can be processed in parallel. But as you can see, there are not that many there are not that many requests to the queue that happen at the same time. Like it's not like 100 of project managers do the publish of their projects at the very same time. They do it like at different time. But the migration process is different from the day-to-day usage. Basically, in the process of migration, all operations, they require the creation of jobs in the queue. And these jobs, they need to be processed, and the queue becomes extremely loaded at this time. For some projects, like smaller ones, it may take 1 minute to be published, but for larger projects, that especially if they have a large number of assignments, it can take 10 minutes for publish and even more. Some jobs can be processed one by one in the Project Online queue, and this will take the upload process even longer. So during migration, most of the operations, as you can see on the screen, are long-running and queued, and the parallel uploads, here you can see three uploads being done in parallel, but these parallel uploads are limited by queue throughput and by such process as throttling that can happen in Project Online. So all these points, they should be considered while planning the migration process and setting the expectations regarding the migration data migration duration. And with this thought in mind, we come to the one of the best practices that we came to during our migrations, and this is developing a migration strategy. So even before the major planning begins, we need to identify the components for migration and decide what will be taken to the new environment and what will be left in the older one. Decide if data will be migrated to clean Project Online instance or to a pre-configured environment. FluentBooks supports both scenarios, but migration to a pre-configured environment needs even more careful planning and understanding that such entities as custom fields and lookup tables and calendars, they cannot be mapped between source and target systems, and their names should be exactly the same. There can be less or more fields in a pre-configured environment, but for those fields, for example, that for which values will be migrated, their names should be exactly the same in the source and target. So we prioritize what needs to be migrated and identify what is nice to have in the new system and what is an absolute must, what has to be migrated. And if there are any limitations related to the items that are absolutely necessary to be migrated, they either need to be rebuilt in the newer system or some workarounds to be used during migration. We also need to identify what is not supported in Project Online by any reason. Is it an API used by the migration tool or the Project Online infrastructure itself, and develop a mitigation plan. For example, SSRS reports, if they are not supported in Project Online, other tools for reporting can be used to build reports for the new environment. And also, it is important to identify post-migration activities that will take place after the data migration itself is completed, such as holding trainings for the team, how to use the new system, how to use Project Online, what are the differences comparing to the older system. Also, among the post-migration activities, there could be some customizations to the Project Online environment. Another best practice is building a migration project schedule with detailed list of tasks that needs to be done during data migration, and with some estimates for each of the tasks. But Before you create a migration project schedule, we recommend to migrate several projects, maybe up to 5 or 10 projects, from the source PWA to the target one, to get a feeling of the migration flow. What are the steps of the migration, how the migration process goes, how FluentBooks performs during the download and upload activities, what is the response from the project online environment. After that, you can create a more detailed migration schedule for the test migration, and basic project schedule would include the following activities, like preparation part, prepare the migration infrastructure, virtual machines, prepare project online PWAs for migration, like provisioning PWAs, selecting permission mode that will be used in the new environment, preparing migration accounts and account mapping. Other So activities that are included in the test migration itself are downloading the data from the source environment, and it's done in 3 parts: PWA configuration, projects, and SharePoint sites, including project sites. The upload process is also divided into 3 parts, and this includes PWA configuration, project plans, SharePoint sites. Then verification comes. Verification and validation of migrated data, like verifying all the aspects and correcting the migration issues if there are any. After all the data is migrated, the environment can be passed to the end users for the UAT, and this is the last step of the test migration. After the test migration is completed and its results are approved, you can proceed with the production migration, and based on the results of the test migration, you can create a more accurate and precise schedule with regards of the estimated durations and efforts for the migration. Production migration includes the very same tasks as the test one. This is downloading the data from the source environment and uploading this data to the target project online PWA, and verifying the migration results and correcting the issues again, if any. After the production migration goes post-migration activities such as trainings, additional customizations, and like redeveloping reports if necessary, and other activities. And then go live date. So this is a recommended migration approach or flow that we also use as the best practice in our migration processes, and this approach is divided into several phases, and first of them is test migration, when you do the planning and you migrate the data from the source environment to project online. And another part of the phase 1 is verification of migrated data and correcting the issues. All the aspects of migrated data should be verified, making sure that all the data was moved correctly and integrity is preserved. And the phase 2 is migration to production environment. It is a separate PWA. So basically, migration to test PWA is performed to one PWA in the tenant, and production migration is done to a separate PWA. So there is no mix between data into migration phases. So during production migration, we also migrate configuration, all the components that we decided to move to project online, project plans, project sites, and all associated entities. And also we do verification of all migrated data and addressing the issues that occurred during the migration. And also I would like to provide an overview of using FluentBooks for data migration from project server on premises to project online. And FluentBooks is a desktop application, and it is built around a concept of working with a workspace. Workspace is a container of project server configuration settings and SharePoint data. And separately, there are also FPP packages which contain project schedules and high-level project data. So as you can see on the screen, the data doesn't go directly from the source PWA to the target PWA as it would be during database migration. So the first step of migration, of the data migration itself, is to download PWA data from the source environment into FluentBooks workspace and FPP packages, and then all the downloaded data is exported to the target PWA, either from FluentBooks workspace or from FPP packages. As FluentBooks is a desktop application, the data, when it is downloaded, it is stored either on your PC or virtual machine or any other storage in your network that you specify during download. So there are several steps that should be followed when using FluentBooks for data migration. And the first major step is downloading data from the source PWA. I will show later in FluentBooks which wizards are to be used for the download. And these are 3 separate wizards, but what I would like to mention here, download process can be done in parallel. Basically, if your migration infrastructure allows, you can launch 3 FluentBooks instances and perform the download of configuration, projects, and project sites in parallel to save the time and to speed up the migration. The upload process is more complicated, and usually, as we noticed in our migration projects, it takes more time than the download, and there is a specific sequence of steps that should be followed during the upload. Configuration and settings is always uploaded first to the target PWA. Then site templates and project templates should be migrated and added to the configuration. Enterprise project types should be updated and verified before upload of projects and project sites. And then we upload projects, making sure that project sites are not created during the upload. And the last upload activity is uploading SharePoint sites and project sites. After all the data is exported to the target PWA, it's time for verification of all the data and validation. And I would like to show you just screens from FluentBooks to have an insight of what wizards are used for the migration and how they can be accessed in the FluentBooks. So PWA configuration and settings should be downloaded using download PWA configuration wizard, and you can find this wizard on two screens in FluentBooks. This is Quick Start wizard screen and Import screen. We call the download process import because basically we're importing the data either into FluentBooks workspace or into FPP packages. And we call the upload process as export in terms of FluentBooks because we're exporting the data from the workspace or FPP files into the target PWA. Project plans, including project schedules, project templates, and project metadata, they are being downloaded using a separate wizard called Download Projects to FPP Files. And FPP file is a package that contains the project schedule itself, an MPP file, and additional files that store such information as resources included in projects, project level custom fields and their values, and task level custom fields and their values. So when you migrate project plans using FluentBooks, you not only move project schedule itself, but you can also move additional like more high-level project data to the project online. And project sites are being migrated using another wizard that is called Import SharePoint Sites. And this wizard is used to download SharePoint data into either a single FluentBooks workspace, or if you have a large number of workspace, a large number of project sites, each of them can be downloaded into a separate workspace just to make the migration process easier, because larger files, larger workspaces, it will be harder for FluentBooks to like open them and to process them. It's just more load on your computer to work with larger files. Upload process, as it is divided into separate steps, it also requires using separate wizards, like upload configuration to PWA wizard. It is designed to assist with uploading configuration settings and data that you downloaded into FluentBooks workspace, and you upload them to the PWA. This wizard is also available in two screens in FluentBooks. This is Quick Start wizard screen and Expert screen. Site templates. If site templates from the source environment are supported in Project Online, for example, if you do migration from Project Online to Project Online, then you can use FluentBooks to migrate the site templates, and you can use Import SharePoint Sites and Export SharePoint Sites wizards for this migration. However, site templates from older Project Server versions, specifically from Project Server 2010, are not supported in Project Online, and we provide a workaround that can be used for such migration. You can find more detailed steps on our help site, which is actually this site contains a large number of articles related to FluentBooks usage, describing each and every wizard that you can find in FluentBooks, and also how-to articles that describes the migration process and other ways to use FluentBooks, like, for example, bulk edit of your resources or projects. Project templates are being migrated through FPP packages also. So they're first downloaded into FPP packages and then uploaded into Project Online PWA. And one important thing to remember about project plans and project templates migration is that Microsoft Project Professional application should be installed on the same machine where migration is performed, because FluentBooks interacts with Project Professional during the download process and during the upload. So this is done for the more accurate migration of project data and just to make sure that the data integrity is preserved. When you migrate project templates using FluentBooks, you will see that in the type column they are marked as templates, and they can be easily distinguished from projects during the migration. After the configuration is uploaded to the PWA and site templates and project plan templates are also added, they should be specified in enterprise project types, and each enterprise project type should be carefully tested that the site template and project plan template is correct and is working in the new environment. The test is quite simple, just creating a new project from each EPT and making sure that there are no errors in the queue related to this project creation. The project site is created and the look and feel of the project site is correct. All the lists and libraries are available, and also no errors related to the project site creation. After that, as part of preparation to projects on upload, site creation settings should be set to do not create a site, and this is done for correct migration of project sites where site name is different from the project name. If that's the case, and we observed such behavior in our migration projects, project site should be created by FluentBooks Expert SharePoint Site Wizard rather than by project server on the first publish, because in this case FluentBooks will be able to create a project site with the correct name and to connect this project site to the corresponding project that is already uploaded to Project Online. After the environment is ready with regards of PWA configuration and settings, and all the corresponding templates are migrated and set in the enterprise project types, the next step is to upload project plans using Upload Projects from FPP Files Wizard. And this wizard is also available on two screens in the PWA, Quick Start Wizards and Expert Wizard. Upload Projects from PWA Files Wizard also requires Project Professional to be installed on the same machine where FluentBooks is running, and FluentBooks will interact with Project Professional during project's upload. Basically, projects will be created, programmatically created in the PWA, and then the data for these projects will be published to the PWA and become visible there. Project sites, the last entity to be uploaded, they can be uploaded using Expert SharePoint Sites Wizard from FluentBooks Workspace to the destination PWA. And this wizard can be launched from the Expert screen, and it's highlighted in yellow. So after the numerous migrations that were either performed by our migration team or that we supported for the customers, for the partners, the most successful migrations that we saw, they all have these characteristics. The first step of before migration begins is data assessment. When the data is carefully assessed and you understand what are you migrating, what are potential issues with the data in the source environment, what can and cannot be migrated to Project Online. This is all important to do as part of preparation to the migration. Careful planning and understanding what will be the duration of your migration and setting expectations, because migration is not something that can be done over the weekend, and duration of the migration is always different for different environments and really depends on the volume and complexity of the data. It is important to understand technical boundaries of Project Online in terms of migration. What amount of data can be migrated to Project Online, and what would be the speed of migration. So item number 4 is provide the training for the team that will perform the migration, because the team that will be doing the actual data migration, it should be experienced in both Project Server and Project Online, and also should have the training on how to use FluentBooks for the data migration between Project Server environments. And the last but not least step is careful verification and validation of all migrated data. Since there are no ideal environments where all the data is 100% correct and not corrupted in any way, there can be certain issues during migration, and they all need to be found and addressed and fixed. And this is done during verification and validation process. So now I would like to turn over to Jose, and he will provide also additional information and some closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. I just want to make a few more closing comments. But we've been talking about best practices of migration. I just want to be clear that the scenarios that we described involve using FluentBooks for migration. So within the FluentPro set of products, we are within the FluentBooks component specifically for migration. So we have 2 use cases for the product, one which is migration and the other one which is administration, which follows migration. This is a very scenario that we offer the product for. In terms of how it's offered, for those that haven't been exposed to it, FluentBooks for Migration Project Online, it is an annual subscription offered based on the number of PWAs in each tenant. For migration, there is a mandatory premium support component, which basically ensures, almost guarantees, that you're going to be successful because our team is going to be behind you. And it's based on the sizing. So larger migrations are going to have more premium support hours than smaller migrations. And there is a whole set of services that comes with that in terms of preparing your team. That whole training component that we said that was important is provided as part of that premium support service. The second component that, just in case if you happen to be interested, we do provide timesheet migration as a service. There's a number of variables that we require. It's basically priced, offered according to the number of timesheets to be migrated. And in order to get to that number, we need some variables. So when we engage you, if you happen to be interested, we are looking at number of projects, number of active resources, time periods, and then obviously getting to the timesheets to be migrated, which is number of resources by number of time periods, in addition to the other variables that we spoke about. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time for questions, so we have taken some and answered some through our Q&A. If you happen to have additional ones, please feel free to contact us directly. My email is shown on the screen, and also our info@fluentpro.com or sales@fluentpro.com, and we'll be more than happy to address any questions. With this, I would, on behalf of FluentPro and Elona, I would like to thank everyone for joining us and look forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you very much.